What if one of the deepest roots of Western esotericism was already present in ancient Greece, hidden behind the image of a poet descending into the underworld? Most people hear the name Orpheus and think of music, myth, and tragedy. But behind that name, a stranger current appears. It is a vision of the human soul as something divine, fallen into matter, trapped in cycles of suffering, and capable of returning to its source through purification, memory, and awakening. That current is Orphism. Once you understand it, you start seeing its fingerprints everywhere, from Plato to late antiquity, and from Gnostic themes to modern occultism. Everything begins with Orpheus himself. In myth, Orpheus was not just a musician. He was the singer whose voice could move stones, tame beasts, and open the gates of death. His descent into the underworld made him a model of the initiate, someone who crosses the boundary between worlds and returns with knowledge that ordinary people simply do not have. In the ancient imagination, myths were never just stories. They were containers of spiritual truth, and Orpheus became the perfect vessel for a tradition deeply concerned with the soul, death, and what lies beyond the visible world. Historically, Orphism was not a single church, and it was never a centralized religion with one founder and one official doctrine. It emerged gradually in the Greek world, especially around the 6th and 5th centuries before Common Era, though some elements might actually be older. Scholars like Walter Burkert and Radcliffe Edmonds show that Orphism is best understood as a network of poems, rites, beliefs, and initiatory teachings attributed to Orpheus. It existed right alongside the public religion of the Greek city-states, but it offered something very different. Traditional Greek religion focused on civic cults, sacrifice, and proper relations with the gods of the polis. Orphism, however, turned inward. It asked what the soul is, why human life is, burdened by suffering, and how a person can be liberated from a condition much deeper than ordinary misfortune. This is where the heart of Orphism really appears. In Orphic thought, the human being is not merely a body animated by life. The soul actually has a divine origin, but it is entangled in material existence and subject to repeated rebirths. In some ancient formulations, the body is almost like a tomb, acting as a place of strict confinement and forgetfulness. The ultimate goal, then, is not just to live well in the ordinary sense. It is to purify the soul, to remember what it truly is, and to escape the cycle that keeps it completely bound to generation and decay. And honestly, this is one of the biggest reasons Orphism still feels so incredibly powerful today. It speaks to a deep feeling that many people have experienced without ever knowing exactly how to name it. That feeling is the sense that human life contains a hidden exile, one of the absolute most important myths. Behind this worldview is the story of Dionysus Zagreus. In later Orphic tradition, Dionysus, in a very primordial form, is attacked and torn apart by the Titans. Zeus then destroys those Titans with his mighty thunderbolt, and from their remains, humanity suddenly emerges. The symbolism here is truly enormous. Human beings are seen as carrying a double inheritance. On one side, there is the titanic element, which is chaotic, violent, impulsive, and entirely bound to appetite and fragmentation. On the other side, there is the Dionysian spark, which is divine, luminous, and fully capable of a beautiful reunion with its original source. So the human condition, in this specific vision, is not simple at all. We are deeply divided beings. We contain both the force that forgets and the spark that desperately longs to remember. If that idea hits home for you, comment Titanic or Divine right now, because that question is really at the very center of Orphism. From that point of view, Orphic practice makes total sense. If the soul is divine but burdened, then life basically becomes a lifelong work of purification. Ancient evidence highly suggests initiations, ritual purifications, sacred formulas, and disciplined ways of living were all associated with Orphic practitioners. Some of these were linked to dietary restrictions and ascetic habits, even though the exact details definitely varied. The main point was to refine the soul, loosen its heavy attachment to lower impulses, and perfectly prepare for what comes after death. This is exactly why the famous gold tablets found in ancient graves matter so incredibly much. These small tablets, buried right alongside the dead, contain explicit instructions for the soul in the afterlife. They tell the soul exactly where to go, what to say, and how to identify itself. For the Orphic initiate, death was absolutely not the end of the path. It was merely a threshold, and human consciousness had to be fully prepared for it well in advance. Orphism also developed inside a much wider pagan world. It had deep connections with the Dionysian religion, but it transformed Dionysus into something far more mystical and cosmological than the popular festive image that many people know today. It also lived in the exact same broad religious atmosphere as the Eleusinian mysteries, although the two should definitely not be collapsed into each other. Both dealt heavily with initiation and hopes for a much better fate after death. But Orphism seems more explicitly concerned with the divine origin of the soul, its impurity, and the cycle of repeated rebirth. It also shares very strong affinities with Pythagorean traditions, especially regarding ideas of purification, personal discipline, and transmigration. This is exactly why Orphism matters so much in the grand history of spirituality. It represents a major, fundamental shift inside paganism itself. It moved away from simple ritual participation in the cosmic order and moved toward a deeply inward drama of bondage, memory, and ultimate liberation. That intense inward drama deeply influenced later philosophy. Plato did not simply copy Orphism, but he clearly moved in a world where Orphic and related ideas were already widely circulating. When you read Platonic themes about the purification of the soul, its recollection, and its ascent beyond the sensory world, you can easily feel that exact same atmosphere. The language changes, the philosophical precision definitely increases, but the core spiritual tension completely remains. In that sense, Orphism helped prepare the fertile soil for one of the most central ideas of the entire Western esoteric tradition. That idea is the realization that knowledge is not just basic information. True knowledge is remembrance, and it is absolute transformation. This is also exactly where people begin noticing the striking parallels with Gnosticism. And let me tell you, the parallels are very real, but they need to be handled carefully. Orphism is not the exact same thing as Gnosticism. Gnostic systems arose much later in totally different historical settings and often in direct conversation with Judaism, Christianity, and Hellenistic philosophy. But the family resemblance is simply impossible to miss. Both systems speak, in their own different ways, of a divine element inside the human being that is caught in a much lower condition. Both place a massive emphasis on awakening. Both see ordinary, everyday existence as being marked by ignorance, forgetfulness, and deep entanglement. Both treat salvation as something closely tied to knowledge, but not in the shallow sense of just collecting facts. They view it in the much deeper sense of remembering your true origin and your ultimate destiny. The main difference is that many Gnostic systems take a more radical view of the cosmos as the flawed product of inferior powers, while Orphism usually preserves a much more sacred vision of reality, even when embodied life is treated as a heavy burden. In my opinion, this specific distinction is absolutely crucial because it shows that Orphism is not just pure world rejection. It is actually more like a sacred estrangement. It is the profound sense that we belong to something so much more than what we can merely see. And this is exactly where the perennial philosophy behind Orphism really starts to shine through. Across so many different traditions, you find the exact same pattern. The soul descends, it forgets, it suffers, it undergoes intense purification, it finally receives knowledge, and then it returns. That pattern is definitely not uniquely Orphic, but Orphism expresses it with absolutely remarkable force. Beneath all the Greek names and ancient myths lies a universal spiritual grammar. Human beings are just not fulfilled by matter alone. There is a higher identity, a deeply buried memory, a profound need for inner alignment, and a clear path of return. When I first truly understood that Orphism completely stopped looking like a dead religious fragment from the past, and it started feeling much more like a mirror reflecting our own nature. As the ancient world developed, Orphic material continued to beautifully echo through Platonism, Neoplatonism, and much later esoteric reinterpretations. In late antiquity and throughout the Renaissance, Orpheus was very often treated as a primordial theologian, acting as a keeper of sacred wisdom from the very dawn of human civilization. Ficino and other brilliant Renaissance thinkers read the Orphic hymns within a much broader revival of ancient theology. Later Hermetic, Rosicrucian, Theosophical, and occult circles did not inherit Orphism in a perfectly straight line, but they clearly recognized something deeply familiar inside of it. They saw initiation through symbolic death, the strict purification of the inner life, the beautiful harmony between the human being and the cosmos, and the powerful idea that myth actively encodes metaphysical knowledge. Even in some highly esoteric Masonic readings, Orpheus becomes a potent symbol of the one who bravely descends into the darkness and ultimately returns carrying the light. So how do experienced practitioners actually use this knowledge today? Well, they do not do it by pretending they are perfectly reconstructing ancient Greece. Instead, they do it by reading Orphism as a practical map for inner work. The Titanic side becomes the ungoverned self, which is reactive, scattered, and entirely addicted to noise. The Dionysian spark becomes the higher consciousness that is carefully cultivated through discipline, contemplation, symbolic ritual, ethical refinement, and the constant remembrance of what truly matters in life. For some people, Orphism becomes a powerful lens for understanding reincarnation and purification. For others, it becomes a brilliant way of reading myth as both psychology and metaphysics all at once. And in a modern world that constantly pulls our attention outward, the Orphic message feels almost rebellious. It tells us to know what inside of us is mortal, to know what inside of us is divine, and to never confuse the prison with the self. If that resonates with you, please leave a comment telling me whether you see Orphism more as an ancient religion, a timeless philosophy, or a practical initiation. I would really love to hear your personal take on this. And if this kind of deep exploration is your thing, drop a like right now so more people can find this video. What makes Orphism so incredibly enduring is that it answers the big questions that never really disappear. Why do human beings always feel so divided? Why does material success so very often fail to satisfy us? Why do so many ancient traditions constantly speak of awakening as a form of remembrance? Why does death appear again and again, not only as a final ending, but as a new initiation? Orphism offered one of the absolute oldest and most influential answers in the entire Western world. It boldly said that the soul is much older than the life it is living right now. It said that what looks like ordinary existence is actually just one small part of a much larger cosmic drama. And it clearly said that true liberation is absolutely possible, but never through distraction, empty appetite, or simply forgetting. It is only possible through deep purification, profound insight, and a fully conscious return. So in the end, Orphism is not just about ancient Greece. It is about the very real possibility that human life has a profound and secret depth. It is about the beautiful idea that right beneath our confusion, there is deep memory. Beneath our fragmentation, there is a completely hidden unity. And beneath all the loud noise of the world, there is a quiet song actively trying to lead the soul back home. That is exactly why Orpheus still matters today. He is the one who bravely enters the dark and reminds us all that the dark is not the end. If you want to keep exploring these fascinating hidden roots of spirituality, make sure to subscribe, share this video with someone who would truly appreciate it, and watch the playlist on screen right now. I say that because the very next video takes this exact same thread even deeper into the ancient mystery traditions that totally shaped the modern esoteric world.